Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Matt Keller. I'm Vice President of Sales and Business Development for Eagle Flexible Packaging. With me is Bob Weisner, who is the National Sales and Key Accounts Manager for Viking Matrix Global Packaging Technologies. We appreciate everybody taking time out of their morning to join us today. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the close integration and the close connection among flexible packaging, the equipment that is used to fill flexible packages, the products that are being filled into the flexible packaging, and brands and marketing of flexible packages as to the point of sale and to the consumer. Our approach is really going to entail an end-to-end assessment of how, or all of the variables that go into the design, development, and implementation of an integrated flexible packaging platform. Points to consider as companies like yourselves go down this path, as we see more and more categories converting from traditional packaging, be it cans or lids or cans, jars, or rigid packaging, box packaging, into the flexible space. And really, what are some of the key aspects of going through an internal assessment to determine what is the proper approach for aligning film with equipment. In doing so, take a look at the agenda, and there are a few things that we are going to cover through the course of the next 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to give you an overview of Eagle Packaging and who we are and what we do, the importance of packaging and the role it plays not only in product placement, but also marketing and brand awareness, how to go through the evaluation of material structures and what variables need to be considered as people are looking to package their product with flexible packaging, and then how to go through that material selection process. That is more than just an evaluation of product, weight, size, and fill rates. There are a number of other aspects to film characteristics that we are going to address. I'm then going to turn it over to Bob Weisner. He's going to give you an overview of Viking, who they are, what they do. He's going to talk a little bit about the steps that they go through when they are conducting material trials, specifically how material needs to align with equipment during the production process to ensure optimization. We're going to share with you a case study that represents an opportunity that Eagle and Viking have collaborated on in recent weeks in this design, development, and implementation of a packaging solution. We are then going to give you a few bullet points to think about as what it really takes in order to go through this assessment yourselves, and certainly would be happy to help any and all of you as you start to go down that path. And then at the end, if there is time, we will have an opportunity to field a few questions. There are quite a few people on the phone with us this morning. We're very excited about that. And we should be able to take at least a few questions. If not, we will make sure that you have our contact information, both my contact information as well as Bob's. So as you think about this and additional questions or additional thoughts or ideas come to mind, please do feel free to forward them to us so that we would be happy to respond, and we'd be happy to go down the exploration path with you to determine how we might be able to really collaborate with you in the development of the type of packaging platform that we are going to be discussing. That being said, let me tell you a little bit about Eagle. We have been in business for 25 years. We are based in the greater Chicagoland area. We're based in Batavia, Illinois, which is about 30 minutes west of Chicago O'Hare. And we are a provider of preform pouches, printed roll stock, and interlock roll stock, and primarily for the food and confection business. A lot of the work that we do is for food and beverage, IQF, or individually quick frozen product, frozen proteins. We do a lot of work with frozen chicken, frozen meats, frozen sausage, frozen meatballs. We are certainly involved in the pet food and treats area. We are getting more and more exposure to nutritional supplements, dry ingredients. Quinoa certainly is an area of growth. Just in terms of Eagle, we are involved, heavily committed into the flexible packaging space. All of our manufacturing is done in the U.S. Actually, all of our manufacturing, our printing and converting is done in our Batavia, Illinois facility. We have been involved in this for over 20 years. and we are expanding our services to include a group that is involved with or driven by our technical department, which is Eagle Innovation. And what you are seeing is really a presentation that is representative of the Eagle Innovation value proposition. We do this on a pro bono basis, but it really is working with customers, working with potential customers in the creation of both an equipment solution as well as a film solution. And we partner very closely with the Viking Mastic organization in order to go through that assessment of both equipment and printed film in order to design a solution for customers. And so the webinar today is really representative of that collaborative effort between our two organizations. In terms of, we talked a little bit about the overall importance of packaging. It certainly is the protection of the product that's carried within. It is the brand identity. It is the first touch of experience with the consumer and the brand itself. There is certainly post-sale value in brand reinforcement after the product has been brought home. From a flexible packaging standpoint, it is a $700 billion industry currently, $200 billion in the US. 75% of it is in the food industry. We are seeing more and more category conversion of traditional products that have been traditionally in cans or jars or bottles that are making the move into flexible packaging. Some of those categories include things like sour cream, condiments, wine, motor oil, lubricants, health and beauty aids, and cleaning supplies that include big soap like laundry detergent and small soap like hand soap. And so we will continue to see that trend primarily because the economics of flexible packaging are very, very favorable to brands, as well as the marketing aspect of what flexible packaging can offer. The term 5x5 marketing is something that we learned about a year ago, and it really does speak to, from a brand presentation standpoint, the value that flexible packaging provides. 5x5 marketing essentially states, or is a theory, that from 5 feet away in the center aisle of a grocery store, a brand or a product has 5 seconds to capture a consumer's attention, bring them to the product so that then the consumer can evaluate a purchase decision. So when you're looking at that very tight window of opportunity to generate revenue, to move product, the conversion to flexible packaging offers much more value in terms of brand communication from a graphic standpoint, from a content and product information standpoint, as well as from a look, feel, form, fit, and function standpoint. So flexible packaging will continue to have a very strong presence and will continue to grow in every point of sale opportunity in the retail space. When we talk about flexible packaging, there are a lot of variables that are involved in the definition of what type of film needs to be used. How do I make sure that flexible packaging, if I'm going through a category conversion process, if I'm going from a jar to flexible packaging, how am I going to be sure that the flexible packaging is going to provide the same type of product protection that my jar will? Fundamentally, rule number one, especially in the food space for packaging, is it absolutely has to provide product safety. That is a table stake. With that, you have no brand, you have no product, you have no business. So what are the steps, what are the variables that need to be considered when talking about a flexible film or a flexible packaging option? A lot of that really is contingent on what is the product. There are thousands of food products, spices and seasonings, and everything in between that are eligible to fit into the flexible packaging profile. So first, what's the product itself? Is it frozen chicken? Is it spices and seasonings? Is it coffee? Is it nuts? Is it quinoa? What is the product itself, and what are the physical characteristics of the product? Is it going to be granular? Is it going to be small in terms of being able to, small like coffee beans, small like pecans? Is it going to be bulky? Is it going to be heavy product like breaded chicken, whether those are breaded chicken nuggets or breaded chicken breasts? But what is the actual weight and the physical characteristics of the product? What are the ingredients, or what are the components of the product? Are there seasonings? Are there oils that could be added to not only enhance flavor, but can provide a better look and feel for the product as it is being taken out of the pouch? All of those components can impact what type of film needs to be used. What is the shelf life of the product? After it is packaged, how long does the product need to stay fresh? If it is a protein, what is the percentage of protein? What is the percentage of fat that's in the product? All of these things have impact on what will be an appropriate and cost-effective flexible film or flexible packaging solution. Secondly, it goes beyond the product itself. It reaches into what will the product be subject to from an environment standpoint during the process. What is the temperature of the product when it's being filled? What is the temperature of the product after it is packaged? Is it going to be frozen at any point in time? Is it going to be chilled at any point in time? From the point it is introduced, the product is introduced to the product, to the package itself, to the time it is at the point of sale, what are all of those environmental considerations that need to be considered? How is the product going to be filled? On what type of equipment? Is it going to be vertical form fill and seal? Is it going to be a flow wrap? Is it going to be a horizontal form fill and seal? That too extends beyond the product and starts to get into what is going to be the meat of our discussion today, which is the performance of, or the critical nature of film and equipment in order to provide an efficient and productive packaging solution. Functionality is important. The structure does need to know that, or the structure does need to also present brand and product in an appealing nature. So graphic representation is a key component as well, as long as durability and quality. Like I mentioned earlier, the look and feel of the product. How does that play in terms of allowing the consumer to determine the value of the product that they are holding? And I've covered through some of this in terms of the material selection and what are the variables that need to be considered. I do want to just draw everyone's attention to the impact that material can have on production. It can impact throughput. If there is not tight alignment between film and machine, throughput can be affected, yield can be affected, not only in terms of product, but in terms of the printed film. Spoilage can have an effect. How much product is being dropped onto the factory floor and how many pouches are unusable because the film is not running through the machine properly. Machine utilization and consistency, and certainly labor. The easier and the more effective that film can run through equipment, the more product can be produced, the greater the efficiencies are from a manufacturing standpoint, and fundamentally, more product gets shipped, more revenue can be generated. And there is a critical aspect of testing material before making a decision and going into live production. So that is a little bit of background in terms of the material component to building a proper and efficient packaging solution. I'm now going to turn this over to Bob. He's going to give you a little bit of information about Viking. And then once he gives you an overview of capabilities and kind of who they are and what they do, we're going to dive a little deeper in terms of how equipment and film and brands can collaborate in order to craft the proper packaging platform.
Thanks, Matt. Viking has been providing rugged, durable packaging equipment for over 20 years. We're a family-owned, privately held business in Oostburg, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Sheboygan. If anyone's been lucky enough to go there. We do offer full tote-to-pallet solutions, and we realize that a lot of thought and time, money, and engineering time goes into figuring out how to get the product from the entry source to the building to the pallet going out the door on the other side. And we are able to work customers through that entire process. One of the most important, if not the most important part of that process is the marriage between the film and the machine and the product. And that's where we have a full R&D set up at our facility to test films, to test product, to make sure that we are going to have the machine set up, spec'd out, and designed to run the film at whatever barrier or graphic or sealant layer you have selected for your product. And we believe that doing that all up front, or we know doing all that upfront work, will enable us to present a machine film system in your plant that will be ready to go by doing all that ahead of time. So we do primarily in the food industry, same that Eagle does. And the growing market in flexible is changing every day. How we look at products on the shelf, how we are getting our supplies. We're seeing more and more customers go away from go away from the rigid containers, the buckets, to a flexible bag. There's a lot of advantage to that, to doing that for them with logistics. The cost per imprint is less, the shipping costs are less, the storage costs are less. So we are seeing more and more formerly rigid containers, for instance, dish soap, going into a flexible bag.
What we have is a case study that really represents how, in this case, Eagle and Viking have collaborated to build an effective packaging solution for a new customer. So what we're going to do is kind of walk you through a little bit of the customer profile, the products that were involved, the process that we went through in order to design, develop, and implement a packaging solution that was going to meet their current and future business requirements. And I guess that is a key theme in not only this discussion, but any discussion that we would be having with anyone who's participating in this call, or any other customer that wants to engage in looking at this type of development process. It is not only trying to solve an immediate need for flexible packaging, automated flexible packaging, but also what are the needs going to be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. So I just keep that in mind as we go through this, because it does play into not only the consistency of the packaging process, but decisions when it comes to equipment and equipment requirements. So what we have is a fifth generation family-owned business in the Southeast that recently sold its brands and assets to an independent brand owner, to a third party in this case. And the result of this acquisition, the new brand plans to consolidate manufacturing from 3 locations into 1, specifically its packaging operations, into a single location and maximize utilization. Before they go through that, before they go through any transitioning or transferring of equipment and people from 2 other locations into 1, they wanted to go through a very intensive assessment of the equipment platform that they had in place, how viable it was, how effective it was going to be to support an expansion of the brand itself, and really what was going to be the optimum solution in order to provide manufacturing support for a very aggressive marketing plan. So specifically, the new brand wanted to explore vertical form, fill, and seal application for snack products. They had never been in this space before. The new brand owner had not been really in the flexible packaging space before. They were much more in cans and jars. And so this was a completely new environment for them. The products themselves were snack foods. They were single serve, forgive the alliteration, single serve salty snacks that were peanuts and pretzels and bite-sized crackers and snack chips and things like that. There were 14 SKUs that represented about 100,000 units shipped for each brand per week in regional distribution, primarily through the East Coast. They had a large concentration both in the Northeast and Southeast. They did not have a very strong presence in the Atlantic Coast area. However, with the new brand owners, the plan is to grow these 14 SKUs under this snack brand family nationally. They wanted to go through an expanded national distribution through the Midwest, the Plain States, and the West Coast. They felt that the brand, or the various flavors among these 14 SKUs had national appeal. And so the expectation was that they were going to grow this product group by 40% year over year for the next 3 to 5 years. That included expanded distribution. They were going to heavily market and advertise as well as get into key product placement opportunities in channels like the airline industry. So there was a very aggressive growth curve that they were expecting with the acquisition of this brand, or the acquisition of this company, and specifically this brand of snack foods. In the current manufacturing model, the family-owned business had been filling these individual snacks pouches in a vertical form fill and seal machine. The equipment in the operation was outdated, was slow, required a significant amount of repair and maintenance. And Bob, you can talk a little bit further about the condition of the equipment and some of the challenges they were facing from just from a production and throughput standpoint.
Well, sometimes when you have something you've used for many years, they started to build up a warehouse, if you will, of spare parts. They've gotten good at fixing things on the fly and working on these machines, but that still meant they were down. And it was time to upgrade, get something faster, something that wouldn't be down, something, in our case at Viking, something with non-proprietary parts that they did not have to keep a warehouse full of spares on their own. We had to take a look at not only the speeds they were running now, but with this growth, what they would need in the future. So we had to make sure we were supplying something that could double in speed and also accommodate food club orders when they come in. So we had to make sure that the machine was both fast enough, rugged enough, easy to operate, and expandable to all these different SKUs, and keeping in mind that they're at 14 now, chances are they'll be at more in the future. So we wanted the machine to be able to grow with them as these opportunities came about. And one of the other things that has to do with the speed, beside all of the in-feed systems, conveyors, and it is also the film. You know, if they're using film they've been using for 5, 10 years, there's a good chance that film is going to work real well at slower speeds, but maybe not at faster speeds. So that's kind of where we have that partnership with Eagle to develop a new solution for them, test it out on a faster machine, make sure they can get those speeds with the new film.
And just a couple of data points to give you, everyone, a sense of what their current production looked like. It was running 2 shifts a day, 4 days a week. The 5th day, Friday, was really left for unforecasted demand. So they had a swing shift that would be able to scale up and meet production requirements as needed. They also, as they said somewhat sheepishly, we also leave the 5th day for the inevitable repair and preventive maintenance and continuing maintenance of the machines that they had in the facility, in the original facility, required. And that also involved about 7 or 8 people that they would bring in, regularly working on, I don't want to say duct taping the machine together, but those were essentially the words that they used in terms of how they kept the machine running. And they understood that it was not necessarily very efficient. However, the new brand owners, when looking at this, did not have a very good understanding as to what the vertical form fill and seal process represented. They didn't understand how the machine worked. They didn't really understand what was considered key metrics to measure performance, other than uptime. So those were some of the frustrations, or just some of the issues that were presented to us in terms of the question, gee, how can you guys help us solve this problem? So they were seeking a manufacturing solution that was going to improve production speeds, improve operational efficiencies, and specifically uptime and product yields. And oh, by the way, we need something that is going to fit into the physical space that we've already allocated in the new manufacturing facility. We didn't find that out until probably 2 or 3 weeks into this process. And so those were some of the dynamics. As Bob said, the film had not been evaluated in over 5 years. It had been just more of the same in terms of what they were running and how well they were running it. And if there was going to be new equipment, there was no assurance that their current film structure was going to run effectively. So that really, from both an equipment and from a film standpoint, was the opportunity that was presented for us to collaborate with the new brand owners in this scenario. So how do we start? What does this process look like? It sounds like there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. How do we break this? Using the old analogy, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat it one bite at a time. So we started with a discovery meeting, and this was a roundtable discussion that really spoke to, tell us about your pain points, tell us about what you're trying to accomplish, tell us about where you see this business going from a growth standpoint, and what are your expectations? And so we talked about machine uptime. Where does that stand now? Where does that need to be in the future? What are we, the customer mentioned many times, repair and maintenance costs, okay? What does that mean? From labor, from material, from downtime, how do we quantify that in a way that is measurable and actionable? How do we improve product yield? Well, we need to know what the product yield is currently. We need to know what the product spoilage, how much product is being dropped onto the factory floor and is nothing but cost and is not a revenue generating opportunity for the new brand owners. How much material are they consuming? How much material spoilage? How much printed film is being thrown away because it cannot be used, because it was filled inaccurately, because there was inconsistency in the pouch after product had been introduced? What are the throughput rates? And something that we discovered in the discovery meeting is, all of this can impact revenue. This can impact on-time shipments. If there is unforecasted demand, if production is lacking, are there back orders? What is their on-time performance to get product to their customers? And what is the revenue impact, negative or positive, of your packaging solution? And so that really does bring the end-to-end perspective into what we are trying to build for them in terms of efficiency. Efficiency means two things: lower cost, three things: lower cost, improve productivity, and generate more revenue. And if their on-time shipment performance is lacking because of production, that's a metric that can be improved. And that's something that we wanted to dial in on in terms of the value of a new packaging platform for them. So from a product perspective, we touched on this a little bit, but we went through then the discovery of, tell us about your product. How much does it weigh? One of the things that's mentioned in there is, what are the physical characteristics? Does it have sharp edges? Sharp edges of product can have an impact on the film you select. It can puncture film as it is being filled, and air can be exposed after the product is packaged, and the product quality can be compromised. Are there sharp edges? How durable or how heavy are the products? If there are things like salts that are dusted on the outside of the product, is there dust residue that when being filled can get up into the sealing channel of the film itself, which can impact the performance of the machine as it is filling and sealing the film itself? Tell us everything we can possibly think of about the product, about what happens to the product after it is filled, as it is packed, and where it goes through distribution. How many individual packages go into a master carton? How much protection does the product package need to provide as individual snack packages are being bulk packed and then theoretically shipped across the country? So these are all dynamics that we went through, really to the point of including marketing in this, so that it was not just we wanted to get a 360 view of the product, the market, the consumer, and how they wanted to present their brand and their product out on store shelves. So we went through this discovery process. There was a lot of back and forth in terms of qualifying for additional information. But after we went through probably 3 iterations of these type of discovery discussions, we got a very clear understanding of what the current capabilities were and what the future requirements for this program needed to be. Can you talk a little bit about the machine model that you recommended?
Yeah, we knew that if they needed to run up to 45 to 60 packages a minute with several different fill weights, we needed to have the capability to run both continuous and intermittent motion so they could grow in the future. And we designed a machine for that would also accommodate different bag styles. They're going with a pillow bag and a hole punch now, and the future may bring the need for a quad seal or a doy bag. So we had to accommodate for that as well. We also wanted to make sure that we had taken into account the fact that, you know, these are similar products right now. They're salty, there's some dust to them. In the future, they may go to something that's a little bit different. So we want to make sure we had vacuum pull belts to ensure that film's going to be pulled at a consistent measure. A lot of times a plant will have climate controlled air, but sometimes they don't. And we have to make sure that if the plant is too dry or too moist, that we do accommodate that and the film structure can be pulled with those vacuum belts.
And that was a point that we fleshed out as we were talking about their new facility. Their new facility was going to be based in Columbia, South Carolina. Humidity was going to have a role. And we wanted to make sure that both from a film as well as from an equipment standpoint, that was taken into consideration.
Yeah, you know, another consideration was getting that film together and in the marriage Matt talked about between the product, the film, and the machine. You know, if they're going to have a dustier product and it's going to stick to the film as it's coming down, we have to make sure that we can seal through that or remove as much of that as possible. So these are things we work through with them. We work through some dust evacuation, some other details to get that seal area as clean as possible. And when we realized that, hey, we weren't going to get everything out of there, we developed a film. Eagle developed a film that had a thick enough sealant layer to seal through any sort of trailing dust or salt.
So what we did do, forgive me for, I actually touched the mouse and made the screen jump a little bit. I apologize. That's my second technical error for the discussion. What we did do is we came up with, based on all of that, the climate information, the equipment information, and the product requirements or the product characteristics. Eagle came up with 3 different film structures that we recommended, and the idea was fundamentally we wanted to create a film structure that would support all of the characteristics of the existing 14 SKUs, as well as learn as much as we could about any type of line extension or new products so that we could come up with a one-size-fits-all. Knowing that there were some limitations in terms of visibility from a product development or marketing standpoint, we took the approach that we will come up with three versions of film that could be a good, better, best type of scenario, not only in terms of how it would perform or how it would protect with the product, but then how it would perform on the equipment. So during that testing process, we ran essentially live production for all 14 flavors of the snack product on all 3 versions of film on Viking's equipment. And so the testing was extensive. We were running about 4 or 5 hours at a time so that we were collecting as much data as we could in terms of those components or those key critical areas that the customer wanted to validate. Throughput being one, equipment optimization being one, projected uptime, etc. So we did come down to a single film that seemed to be the best opportunity for performance improvement, as well as a one-size-fits-all solution from both a procurement and a supply chain standpoint, that we then went through the FAT on the machine to go through the final validation process. And during that, we did see that the areas of improvement were going to be achieved based on what the new brand owners had laid out. So we were getting consistent fill rates of 45 to 60 packages a minute. Based on the replication of live production that we provided, we had film spoilage of less than 4%. Product spoilage, meaning the amount of the brand owner's product that was hitting the floor, was 3% or less for each flavor. Uptime was better than 85%, and that was based on a 7.5-hour shift. As I mentioned previously, there were somewhat of an all-hands-on-deck approach to keep the old equipment running from both a maintenance standpoint, but also from an operational standpoint. And with the servo-driven capabilities that the Viking machine provided, it could be operated by a single operator. So there was a labor gain there as well, labor cost gain. Film changeovers from one SKU to the next, from one flavor of snack to the next, from a production standpoint, was fewer than 10 minutes. Single operator could do that. And the projected cost reduction for the overall snack line production for the manufacturing was 33%, with an increased output of 44%. So based on what we learned from the customer, what we went through in terms of the discovery or the evaluation of what they were trying to achieve, or let me back up, where they were currently and where they wanted to go, we worked very closely to develop a solution that not only would meet immediate need, but also was going to allow for the aggressive revenue trajectory or production throughput requirement that they were expecting over the next 3 to 5 years. So ultimately, it was a success. This was a program that took about 5.5 or 6 months from its initial conversation to the actual installation and full commissioning of the platform itself. However, I think the results continue to speak for themselves in terms of the value that we were able to bring to the customer.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a short-term pain, long-term gain. It did take a lot of work up front for a short period of time. It wasn't actually easy to do. It was time-consuming, but the long-term gain was well worth it. And it took a true partnership between Eagle, Viking, and the customers' input as well. They had to be fully on board with going through this process as well. And now that we've been through it and it's shown to work, they're extremely happy.
So with that being said, and with that is a backdrop, just a couple of points in closing that are takeaways, is in terms of going through this type of process, the best way to ensure success is as there is new products, as there are new manufacturing requirements, engage with the equipment supplier and the material supplier as early in the process as possible. And that is, I think that is probably if I could leave you with one thought, it would be that, because it is the collaboration among machine, material, product, manufacturing, and marketing that really are the key. Those are all key inputs that will help determine not only how to solve current production requirements, current production issues, but also lay the foundation for improvement and performance opportunity as there are growth, as there are new lines that are being brought on, as there are different applications that could be utilized through an existing manufacturing platform. Long-term success, think about the product changes. As I mentioned early on, anything in terms of a product change, from seasonings to size to dimension to an extension, to go from pretzels to chips, may sound easy, but all of those can impact the performance of not only the equipment but the film itself. And the last line is also absolutely critical: test and validate. Test and validate material with machine. That cannot be stressed enough. It does take time. Generally, that testing cycle can be anywhere from 5 to 7 weeks, 5 to 8 weeks, depending on how many materials are being evaluated, depending on the equipment itself as well as the product. But it is vital to ensure the success of both material and machine in order to meet product requirements and production expectations.
Yeah, certainly. We hope that the takeaway from today is education into the process, what it takes to achieve success in a new line or changing a line over. And we didn't want this to be just a commercial for Viking and Eagle. We do have our information on here. We'll make ourselves available to tell you how great we are at any time that you'd like. We really do appreciate your time. I know everybody's busy, and thank you so much for sitting with us for this half hour.
Are there any immediate questions we can answer? If not, please feel free to email either Bob or myself. We will be happy to respond, but just in closing, if there are any immediate questions that we could address, we would be happy to for a couple minutes. One that was sent to us electronically is, which comes first? Is it the equipment that comes first in terms of developing this platform, or is it the film? And I think fundamentally, it's the product's going to drive that. It's how you fill the product that is really going to be the first tumbler to click. Equipment is really going to be the first point of consideration. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. Either the customer comes first, they have the product, they have the look and the need for barrier that they need with the film, and then it is up to us to figure out a way to make that a reality.
Are there some details that you can provide about the machine that we chose in this case?
Yeah, there are. You know, it's a somewhat newer design for Viking. We've gone to a more modular build, so we can go from pillow bag to doy bag to quad seal bag and make all those work on a single machine platform. On our website, you'll see the MS versions of those machines. And the reason we chose that was, A, the simplicity of running it, the flexibility of changing bag styles in the future, and it comes in various sizes, so we could accommodate larger bag sizes.
Another question we received is, from a trial standpoint, from a testing standpoint, you know, how long does that take? And it really depends on how many products are involved, how many different products are involved, and how many material structures are being evaluated or being recommended. But generally speaking, it is a trial process. It takes about 2 weeks to get trial film in, and then it probably takes another week to schedule and run the trial itself on a particular piece of equipment. Generally speaking, we run simulated manufacturing, so that would be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 feet of material for each version of film that we are using. And all in all, the project, you know, a trial process is, I'm going to say it's about a month. We have a question: how many baggers accommodate different film structures, poly versus laminate? How many of your baggers?
Well, a single bagger will accommodate different film structures. What's required is a different jaw. So the laminate film will have a different jaw structure than, say, an unsupported poly film. If we know up front, we can have one set of jaws that could accommodate both, and it really is dependent on the film. We can retrofit a machine. If you're running poly now and need to change to a laminate, it's a very quick changeover, and we put some plug-and-play jaws in there and set you up with the new film structure.
Fair enough. I think, again, you have our contact information. We will make this presentation available to everyone who participated. Thank you. We look forward to hearing from you, and if there's anything else that you can do, that we can do for you in the future, we look forward to learning more about how we can support you.